Before we get into what we're up to, I just want to review the basic requirement for the Baal Shem Tov, Tefillah. The basic requirement is the first shear I think that we had was, we have to remember one thing. The letters of the Tefillah, the letters that we say, the Tefillah, have a body and they have a soul. This is something which is totally theoretical. It's not something that we can see or feel or touch, but this is what we are taught. And we know the letters exist because we have an aleph beis which is written, which we have from Sinai all the way down. So they are the printed form of the body of the letters. Now, what is the soul of the letters? The soul of the letters is what gives that body its ability to remain as it is, to keep that shape. That shape, the form of the letters that exist, the aleph, the beis, the gimel, that is the body. What gives them that ability to maintain that consistency? It's something which is always there from the beginning of creation all the way down till today. Those letters exist. There is a soul inside them, a pneumius, a certain kedusha inside the letters. What's important about that? Important about that is two things. The first thing is, and that's what we're here for, is when we daven, we have to take ourselves, think of yourself when you're davening, let's assume it applies to the entire davening, but especially the Shemona Esrei. When you daven, you have to think of yourself as going onto the ship. You are going onto the ship. The letters are the ship. Each letter is a ship, and it's floating in the water. And you want to get onto that ship. You want to get along with the flow. You want your tefillah, you want your prayers to get to their destination. In order to do that, you have to join. When the train comes into the station, you got to get on the train. If you don't get on the train, you're going to miss it. You're not going to get on the train. You're not going to get to the destination. The tefillahs, the words, they go someplace. When we say the words, we put the train on the track, we put the ship in the water, and we want that ship to reach its destination. We want the train to get to its final station. So we have to get on the train. We have to get on the ship. How do you do that? You do that by, very simply, but even though it's simple to do, I'm sure not everybody does it. And that is, before you start to say the word, think of the letters in your mind. Think of the letters in your mind and close your eyes for a minute. Look at the word on the page. Think of the letters in your mind. And think of yourself getting on the ship. Getting into the word, getting into the train. Bo el ha-teva. As Hashem says to Noach, come into the ark. The teva is the word. Come into the word. Come into the letters. Each individual letter. The Baal Shem Tov said, each letter is a ship by itself. You've got to join. You've got to get in there and put yourself into it. Think of yourself as diving into the pool. Dive into the letter. That's the way to do it. It's all in our imagination, and it all depends on our kavanah. It's all there. It's all there. That's what makes the entire difference. The entire difference is the kavanah. I remember hearing some time ago from one of my teachers in America, and he was talking about the kavanah that a person has during davening. So somebody raised the question, well, the Arizal has his kavanos, and he has this kavanah. So he said, why do I need the Arizal's kavanos? I want to put my kavanos in there. I have my things that are on my mind also. Well, he was really actually reinforcing the idea. The point is, you have to have some kind of a kavanah, because what kavanah is, that's what gives the letters their entire life. That's what makes them come alive. Otherwise, they're like dead. It's like a ship that's traveling and nobody's on it. What's the point? What's the point? The ship is traveling, the train's going through all the stops, and no one gets on the train. It's like it's a waste. It's a waste. That's exactly how you think about it. Before you start Shemona Esrei, especially, you have to think that I'm going to go into this, and I'm going to do it.
The first lesson you gave us. The first time you said, get into the letter. Get into
I am reviewing that because it needs reinforcement. You may know it, and I may know it. Do I do it every single time? I don't do it every single time because it takes a lot of time. And I don't have that much time each day. For Mincha, Ma'ariv, I can do it for Shachris, and I can't even do it for the entire Shemona Esrei. So it takes me too long. As it is, Shemona Esrei, as I said a number of times, takes me about 20 minutes in the morning. Now I can afford 20 minutes in the morning because I daven nets for Sikin. So I have the time, and I don't care if they finish ahead of me. It doesn't bother me at all. At least I know that I put in one good tefillah.
That's what you said. That's what you told us to do.
Right.
Don't go along with the rest of the congregation.
You start with everybody together, but once you start, you're on your own. You're on your own. Forget about the world. Forget about the world. And you know that you have one good tefillah. What is the, let's call it...
I have a question, Rabbi. What happens if you're doing that, and it's Monday, and they call you up to the Torah for an aliyah?
Well, in the middle of Shemona Esrei, you can't move.
I know, but...
So they'll realize that you can't move, they'll call somebody else.
Oh, it's happened to me a few times, and I just...
Are you sleeping?
I tell them that I'm not going to take the aliyah.
You don't have to say, you shouldn't even say, you shouldn't move.
I go like this.
No, that's also not good. That's also not good. You keep your concentration on the words. You're not allowed to do anything in Mishmar Esrei. You're talking to God. You don't let anything disturb that. Nothing. Unless it's Pikuach Nefesh. Unless it's Pikuach Nefesh. Nothing can disturb that. Talking directly to God is disrespectful. You're talking to God and then you're motioning to them. They will understand themselves, if you're Mishmar Esrei and you don't respond when they call you, they'll understand yourself. They see you standing still and you have a sitter. They'll see you davening. That's all. Nothing more is necessary. Okay, so I just want to review that again because, as you said, even though it was the first year that we gave, it's the basic, it's the foundation for the entire davening. Because the Shem Tov realizes, and not only he realizes, I mentioned this before also, Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, Hasidish, Ashkenazi, a Talmud of the Gra, was against Hasidus, and the Ben Ish Chai, they all quote the same thing, they all agree. Yeah, so you have three big poskim, dayonim, Gedolei Yisrael, who all agree to the same idea. You have to picture the letters of the words in your mind. Picture them in your mind. The Baal Shem Tov was the one who added, think of yourself going into the letters themselves, becoming part of the letter. Like you're getting on the train as it passes by. Go into the train. You can't get on the train by standing on the platform. The door opens, you got to go in. Then you go along with the train. Same thing. The words require you to become part of them. That gives them their life. That makes them come alive. That's very important. That needs reinforcement all the time. Before you start the Shemona Esrei, you have to think, what is the chore that's in front of me? What am I going to do now? And then you do it, and then that's the way it works. Now, I saw something very interesting. I mentioned the other thing. Now, listen to this. This is very important, because I mentioned this also. Again, it's important to review it. But Shem Tov also says the following. There are people who have ups and downs. Everybody has ups and downs in their life. Everybody. The greatest leaders that we had, the greatest tzaddikim, had all ups and downs in their lives. Many of them had many times of tsaros in their life. Big tsaros. from children, from goyim, from all kinds of things. Everybody's got ups and downs. And the Baal Shem Tov gives an eitzah. If you find yourself going through periods of difficulty in life and you want to get out of it, there's a skula that you can use with the introduction that we just gave, and that is the following. We said, inside those letters, there's an neshama. It's the pnimius of the letters, the inside, the internal occupation, what's occupying the letters on the inside. That is so kadosh, so holy, it's really almost connecting to Hashem himself. It's the very, very top. It's the most spiritual, the most holy area that is not even possible to describe. It's like the neshama. Can we describe our neshama? We don't know what it looks like. We know that it's some kind of a force that we have in us. That force gives us the ability to talk, to walk, to do everything. Take out the neshama, and the body just lies there like a piece of stone. That's all it is. It's nothing. The neshama is the life force. The life force. So the letters have that life force. That's coming directly from Hashem. You cue into that. If you find yourself, the Baal Shem Tov said, you're going through difficulties in life, cue into that. Get into the pnimius, to the internal occupation of the letter. What's occupying the letter on the inside, that kedusha, that special koach from Hashem, that is way above all the dinim. Cue into that, and you'll free yourself from the difficulties that you're in. But you've got to do it not just one time. Do it every single day. Try to do it 3 times a day. Cue into it, and you will see that the pressures will be released. Pressures will be released. You'll find yourself freer. You'll find yourself happier. You're cueing into an area where there are no dinim. There are no dinim. It's like a person that say, you're in this world, there's all kinds of things going on in this world. There's day and there's night, there's black and there's white, and all of a sudden you go into a Sputnik, into a missile, and you're going up into outer space. All of a sudden there's no day, there's no night. You're a completely different atmosphere. The entire world is different. You look at everything differently up there. You're outer space. You're miles and miles and miles up there, and you're traveling, and there's no gravity. Everything is different. You're not at all worried about day and night and ups and downs. You're just floating. It's a different life altogether. That's exactly what's going on inside the letters. You get into an area which is boundless. It has no boundaries, no limitations, no ups, no downs. You go into an area which is free, which is kadosh, which is tahor, which cannot be described. That's the area, l'mayla min hateva, above all nature. Cue into that with your mind, and that's where you are, because a person is where his mind is. And if your mind is there, you release yourself from all of the tsaras that are surrounding you. But you got to do it seriously and do it more than once. You keep with it, and you'll see that things get it. This is a haftacha for the Baal Shem Tov. So I didn't make this up. The Baal Shem Tov makes it up. He made it up for us because he knows. He's in the know. We can be somach on him. All right, so that's that. Now, if you look at the page in front of you, Sanites. Im Adam Mispalel, up on top. Im Adam Mispalel, V'yesh lo machshava acheres. You hear this now? You're davening. Your words are coming out of your mouth, but your mind is someplace else. And that's very easy, because we all know most of the davening, we say it 3 times a day, so you know the words by heart. So even though your mind drifts off to someplace else, the words are still flowing, which is terrible. If you catch yourself while your mind drifts, you have to stop. But he says, Im adam mispalel v'yesh lo machshava acheres. In other words, your mind is not connected to what you're saying. Your mind is not connected with Hashem. What happens? Ozai chas v'shalom haklipa rocheves al hadibur. In other words, it's like what happens when a person dies. What happens when a person dies? While he's alive, so he has a neshama kadosha, a nefesh inside him, which is holy, and he's alive. Why does a mace have tumah? What happens when a person dies? We say a mace is tameh. Mace is tameh. What happens? What makes him tameh?
The soul, the life force is going away. So there's like
so life force is going away. So he's not holy anymore. But why makes he tameh? So he's not plus. But what makes him minus? Why isn't he neutral? Why isn't he neutral?
There's a vacancy there, a void is filled, and when tumah comes in.
That's the point. That's exactly the point. When you have a vacancy, as Rabbi Elio said, the vacancy is not left vacant. There's no such thing as a void. The void is filled with tumah. And that's why a mace is tameh. Because when there is a occupation of kedusha and the kedusha leaves, the tumah sets in. They don't miss an opportunity. They don't miss an opportunity. And therefore, the mace is metameh. Therefore, the mace, that's why it's tameh. So he says, same thing happens about Shem Tov with a word. When your kavanah is attached to the word, you give that word life. It's working. It's movable. It's going someplace. But if your machshava is not with the word, it's like a mace, a dead word. What's going to happen with a dead word? What happens with a dead person? The tumah comes in and occupies the vacancy. That's what happens with the word. The word gets occupied with the vacancy. Like we says, Azai chas v'shalom haklipa rocheves al hadibur. Klipa is a way of expressing the kochos of tumah. They write on the word. Ki machshava rocheves al hadibur. Thoughts that we have, they write on the word, like they're getting onto the train, getting onto the ship, and that's what it meant. Beremez, the pasuk in Shir Shirim, Bezo, Zesusasi berichvei paro. So Shir Shirim was said in a very poetic fashion, and the poetry there refers to ideas. And Rabbi Akiva said that call the shirim, all the other things that we have are kodesh. Oz your shir is kodesh. Parshas Hazinu is a shir is kodesh. Shir shirim is kodesh kodoshim, the holiest of holiest. And he says all of the words in Shir Shirim have very special message. And the words he mentioned here, the susa si berichvei paro, my horses on the chariots of Paro. What did that mean? What does that mean? So he says susim nikraim adiburim. You hear that? The horses are the words. I said before a different mashal. I said a train or a ship. So it's something you ride on, correct? You ride on the ship, you ride on the train, you ride on a horse. Right? You ride on a horse. The susasi berichvei paro, the horses that were carrying the chariots of Paro. Paro, and what is Paro? Paro is Kodesh. Paro obviously represents the Tumah. Hainu machshava zora, rochev alav. So when the Tumah comes in onto the word, these strange, the strange thoughts which bring the Tumah, machshava, Ozai, what did it say at the end? Di misich rayosi. The simple translation is that I imagined you, my friend. But he says the mis comes from the word also silence. Yoser tov ilu shotek. If you have a strange thought which is not connected to the word, better not say anything. Hold yourself for a moment, catch yourself, and keep quiet until you can get your control back and think of the words that you say. So here is a very difficult thing, but this is part of the process of proper davening. A person has to daven, concentrate on the letters and the words and have the kavanah and get on the ship, fill up the words. But he also, at the same time, has to be his own policeman. At the exact same time. If you see that you are not doing the job properly, your mind is drifting, which happens to everybody. Everybody happens to. The greatest leaders, the greatest tzaddikim, everyone's mind drifts at some time during the day. You have to stop. Don't go on. Don't go on. You have to stop. Because if you don't stop, the words become occupied by the tumah. Then it only causes you damage. It's only going to cause you damage. And therefore, stop. Don't let the ship be there and be unoccupied, because it's going to be occupied by the tumah. So therefore, don't say anything. So there'll be no new ships, no words. Everything is held in abeyance until we get the thing back together again. Until we start the restart button. We start again, freshly. I have to concentrate on what I'm saying, think of the words. Okay. Now, another aid to help us do this is, it sounds childish, but it's not childish at all. We know how difficult it is to concentrate the entire time. Is when you daven with the siddur, if you really want to do it carefully, put your finger on the word.
Right.
It makes you like a laser. Makes you look at the way your finger is pointing. Look at that word where your finger is pointing and concentrate on it. If you were listening to somebody who's laning, he's the Kriyas Torah, and you're listening, and every time you catch a mistake, you get $10. You're going to listen carefully. Your finger's going to be on every word. You get $10 a word. $10 every time you catch him, you get $10. You $10 a word. Well, do the same thing for yourself. What do you have to have somebody else? Get yourself $10. Catch yourself. Put your finger on the letter and the word, and if you have if you're holding the siddur in your hand, it's difficult a little bit, but if you're davening by a table, by a stender, whatever it is, then you can do it. Put the siddur down and focus. Focus like a laser on the word. These are all things, all kinds of eitzes that help you really daven like you're supposed to. Your mind must be on the word. Now, let's not misunderstand what that means. This is very important. You do not have to understand the meaning of the word. Don't think because you don't understand what it means that you're not davening. No. You do not have to understand it. It's better if you do, but you do not basically have to understand the meaning of the word. But you do have to have in mind that I want my mind to be on what that word is. Whatever the word means, my mind is there. And I'm not thinking about the makolet. I'm not thinking about what I have to do later or earlier or what happened yesterday. I'm thinking that I want my mind on that word. I'm on the ship and I want to get where the ship is going. I'm on the train and I want to go where the train is going, and I'm fully focused on that. That's all.
And you don't have to keep up with the rest of the congregation?
Of course not. Yeah, of course not. Forget about it. Forget about them. You can't concentrate really well and have your mind on what they're doing. Cannot do it. It takes full concentration. Full concentration. And when you finish such a Shmona Esrei, you feel you accomplished something. You feel you accomplished something. It's a tremendously satisfying feeling. You have to work hard to do it. Well, tefillah is considered avoda. Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omeid, ala Torah, v'al ha'avoda, v'al gibberes chasadim. Tefillah is avoda. It's servitude. You're serving. To serve the God, you have to be focused. You have to really concentrate. That's what Hashem wants from us. And think about it, if you know, how much time of the day are you giving to this service of Hashem? Not giving 10 hours. A half hour, let's say. Let's say you spent a half hour davening Shmona Esrei. A half hour out of 24 hours. What is that? What does God ask of you? A half hour?
Half hour 3 times a day.
So it's an hour and a half, but you still have 24-hour day.
Right.
So you put yourself into it for a half hour and you concentrate. You concentrate for a half hour. It doesn't, and it's not going to be a half hour. But let's say even if it was a half hour, Shmona Esrei. Let's say if it was. So what's a half hour out of 24 hours? Aval davar hayotze mihalev nichnas lalev perish belev ha'elyon al yedei ha'hevel kanoda. But something that comes out of your heart, you say it with a full heart, that goes into the heart of Hashem, so to speak. As it is. Okay. You want to take a look at what we just said in a slight paraphrase. Take a look at the bottom of the page. The Makor Mayim Chayim. Makor Mayim Chayim on the first one on the right side, Ayin Beis. You say that? You see that? The Sefer Likutei Amorim. Okay? So he says now, second line, Susim Nikra Oisios Shel Tefillah. They're called horses. Or we call them trains or ships. Ubesefer,
Horses, right.
they're horses.
Horses.
Ayin Shom. Ubesefer Rav Yevi, V'zel Shalom. Kisha Adam Choshev, Eino Choshev, Shum Machshava, Zora B'shas HaTefillah. When a person does not think anything extraneous at the time of davening, Rak Choshev Ba'oson Osios. He thinks only about the letters. And he's not even talking about the pshat, the understanding of the letters, but the letters themselves. Shemedaber be'emes b'shas hatfilah. Have kemo rochev al oson osios shel dvar emes. It's as if you're riding on the osios, something which is truthful. That's what you're doing. Kemo rochev al asus. Kemo is just riding on a horse. Molachos o hasus le'ezem makom shiyirtze. You can direct the horse to go wherever you want. How? How? By moving the reins to the right or to the left. In other words, you are intending, I want you to go there, I want you to go there. So with your mind also, you can push the letters to go or the word to go where you want it to go. That's why my Rabbi in America says, why do I have to have the Arizal's kavanas? I have my kavanas that I want. I want these kavanas to be attached to the words. And that makes the whole difference. Remember, we gave the mashal of the Shvatim when they had Chanukas HaMizbeach in the Mishkan, in Pashas Naso. The Torah repeats all 12 Nesiim, letter by letter, no difference between them at all. Why does the Torah do that? Repeating so many psukim, the longest parsha in the Torah. Because of that. The answer is because every Nasi had a different kavanah. Every Nasi had a different kavanah, which makes it a different reality. The entire Shmona Esrei becomes a different Shmona Esrei when you have your kavanahs. And if your kavanah is that I want the letter to do what it's supposed to do, and I'm concentrating on the letter, nothing else, that's sufficient. That's sufficient. And your words become active, become alive, because you're concentrating on them. That's what you have to do, that's all. You have to remember, when these words were formulated, the Anshe Knesset Gadola, they accomplished a tremendous amount of things that we have no idea that they're accomplishing. What do I say that for? Because in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Mishkan, there was a korban tamid in the morning, and a korban tamid in the afternoon. It's Beinu Habayim, right? And today we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, we don't have the Mishkan, so we have our Shmona Esrei in place of the korban. In place of the korban. It's just like when the korban, we take an animal, poor little animal, and we shecht him. Oh, is he happy? He's the Shem is so happy. He's serving Hashem, he's on the Mizbeach. The animal is burnt, and it goes up, and it makes all kinds of wonderful tikkunim in Shemayim. Tremendous amounts of tikkunim. It makes a kapara on all your averos, everything, so many things that it accomplishes. We have no idea how it works. We don't know how it works, but it works. In the same way, our tefillas, who are a substitute for the kavanos, accomplish the same thing. You don't have to know how it works. You have to know what you're doing, that's all. It works, because Hashem made it work. That's the system that He arranged. He arranged it works that way. You say the words, your words are in place of the kavanos, and they go up, and they accomplish what they have to accomplish. On the condition that you concentrate on what you're doing. It's hard work. It's hard work. It helps you. Before you start the Shemona Esrei, it's tremendous help. You have to stand there and you say, I'm going now to address the Shekhinah, and I'm going to say these words slowly and carefully with concentration and focus on the letters, and I'm going to try to hold on to it until I finish. Until I finish. That's what it's all about. And then it'll do what it has to do. You get on the train. After you get on the train, the motorman takes you where you're going. You don't have to know anything more than that. You're somebody who's reliable, who's making the train move. So Hashem is taking care of that. He'll make the train move. You just got to be on the train and fill it up. Fill it up with your neshama, with your kavanah. That's all. Okay. Now, in the next paragraph on the next side, Ayin Gimel, as we mentioned last time, this is beautiful. This is exactly what we're saying. Now just imagine, you take an animal and you sacrifice it and you burn it, and what goes up? The animal goes up? No. Smoke. Smoke goes up, correct? And odor goes up. Smoke goes up. What goes up? Now we don't have animals today, we have our words. Our words are substitutes for the animal. What goes up? Did the word go up? Look what it says here. Look what it says here. Left side, Ayin Gimel. Second line. Shamaiti b'shem Baal Shem Tov. She'omar inyan echos aliyos tfiloseinu. The quality of elevating our tfilos. Bevadai hatfila eina ole begashmius kamo she'adam motzi mipiv. The tefillah does not go up as you say it, it comes out of your mouth. That does not go up. What goes up? Ki im kamo ha'ashan ole. It's like smoke. It's like a vapor that goes up. V'hu rak, what is actually making the aliyah? Re'usa v'ratzon ha'adam. Your intentions, your will, that pushes that sound, with your arousal, with your flame that's inside you. That's what goes up. It's amazing. And that is registered up there. What? Your ratzon, the vapor that comes out of your mouth, that goes up and it makes such an impression up there. It's amazing. It's like nothing's happening. And look what's going on as a result of it. So much is happening. It's like also you take a big animal and you shecht it and burn it, and all that goes up with the remains is smoke. What is it doing? What's the smoke? What can smoke do all the way up in Shemayim? Nothing to do with the Shemayim you're talking about. Has nothing to do with the stars. Nothing to do with the clouds. Nothing to do with that at all. Not at all. There is a world of spirituality, a very deep world which we have no contact with. No contact with at all. The world of the Sfiros, the Olam Esvalyonim. Up there, every action, every thought, every breath makes some kind of an impression. Everything. And it's so subtle. You can't even imagine how it can accomplish anything. You know why? Because we don't have the sensitivity as human beings to feel it. We do not have the sensitivity. Our senses are not refined enough to feel that. Not at all. Baal Shem Tov, the Arizal, they were on a level they could. Remember the story I told you with the Baal Shem Tov, where he was outside of a shul with his Talmidim, his Hasidim, and he wanted to go inside, and all of a sudden he stops at the door. So the Talmidim say to Rebbe, why don't you go inside to the base of MIDRASH, base of Knesset, go in. He said, I can't go in, there's no room. I said, what do you mean there's no room? They look inside, they see there's plenty of room. What do you mean there's no room? He said, these people, they don't daven with kavanah. Their words are empty. They're not going up to Shemayim. They're all in the air. They're circulating in the air in the base MIDRASH, and the base MIDRASH is packed with all these letters, with these empty ships. It's packed. I can't get in there. He had the sensitivity to understand, to feel that ruchnius. He was able to feel it. Because he was the Baal Shem Tov. He worked on making himself a very, very spiritual person. He was able to sense that occupation of all those tumah in the words there, in the word letters circulating in the air. So he was able to sense it, but we can't. But we have to know that these are the things that go up to Shemayim. These spiritual creations that we make that come out of our mouth. Seems like nothing. If I wanted to hear the word that I said, a second after I hear it, say it. A second after I say, is this sound around anymore? After I say that sound comes out of my mouth, all of a sudden it's dead. If somebody wanted to tape me, right? Tape a word that I said. He has to tape me exactly when I'm saying it. If he tapes me a second later, he won't hear anything. He won't pick up anything. But doesn't mean that it's not there. Doesn't mean it's not there. It still can be there, but it's not able to be picked up because the sensors aren't strong enough. But the sounds that we say exist. They exist, the sounds that we say, even after we say them. We just don't feel it. We don't see it. We can't sense it. But the sounds that we utter from our mouth exist. And they go up to Shemayim in some form. If we had the proper tools, we'd be able to pick them up too. And that's what goes up to Shemayim. That's it.
Sounds of silence.
Well, it says many times it's for a pleasant smell for Hashem.
Reach Nichol Hashem, correct.
So, because Hashem doesn't have food and physicality, and so how is that to put it together now?
Because the Torah is talking about the Korbanos. The
Korbanot, yeah.
Reach Nichol Hashem. It's trying to give us something to grasp, to have a feeling. The Torah is written for people, not for malachim. People, we have to have some kind of sense of accomplishment. We have to to feel something. So we understand a pleasant smell. Now we can understand that, right? You smell roses, you smell perfume, whatever it is you smell is a pleasant smell. So to give us, and smell is the most spiritual sense that we have. Smell, not touch. Not touch. It's very spiritual. That's what we say a bracha, barimine besamim, motzei Shabbos. Why? Because all Shabbos long we had a neshama yisera, right? We had an extra neshama because of Shabbos. Motzei Shabbos, the neshama yisera departs. We don't feel anything. We don't feel a difference. I'm the same person I was 5 minutes ago before Havdalah as I am after Havdalah. But we are told that the neshama that we have is sad because its friend left. So in order to give that neshama some kind of feeling of consolation, we give something that the neshama can appreciate. What's that? Reach. Reach. Reach is something which relates to the neshama. It's something which is very, very spiritual, a sense which is very, very spiritual. So we smell something, so we understand that smell is something spiritual. It satisfies our neshama that lost its best friend, the neshama yisera. So the same words are used so we can understand that Hashem also has pleasure. Hashem is more spiritual than the neshama even, but he also has some kind of pleasure when the animal is sacrificed, the smoke goes up. Even the smoke, how long does the smoke last? Lasts, I don't know, after the smoke dies out also. There's no smoke in Shemayim. It doesn't go up. What goes up? There's something that's going up, something spiritual that goes up. It's described for us in that way, with that language, Reach Nichoch Hashem, so we should get some kind of a picture in our mind that it makes Hashem happy. It's pleasant for Hashem to see these things happen. The Kabbalah is brought on the base of MIDRASH, the Mern. That's all it is. It's a manner of expression. Just like we said, Yod Chazaka, right? Hashem has an outstretched hand. What kind of hand? Hashem has a hand? Doesn't have a hand. Uvayar Hashem sees. Hashem has eyes. Does he see? It's a different. The Torah is written for people, so people would have some kind of concept, some kind of a way to zero in and feel something, so they can identify with it. So these words are used. That's a well-known thing.
The smell is the only one that, since it wasn't affected by the original sin, smell wasn't used, sight was used,
Also.
everything was used except for the smell.
That's correct.
So it's not diminished at all.
That's
so
correct.
we have the full strength of the original.
That's good. Very good. Also true. Correct.
I have another question. So let's say you get up to, they're starting to read the Torah, and you're down in the Shmon Esrei.
What do you mean you're reading the Torah?
They're
reading the Torah.
Do you stop when they start reading the Torah? Or you
No,
keep
no,
going?
no, no.
Keep going.
You're really not even supposed to be aware of it. If you're davening properly, you shouldn't even hear that.
You're inside the words, and you're inside the sentence.
You're
You don't
in
even know
another
what's
world.
going on around you.
And look, we all know the truth. You know, if you're not really into it, you're not concentrating really hard, you're going to hear the Kriya Torah, you're going to hear the Kaddish, you'll hear the Kedusha, you'll hear it. So if you do hear it, not Kriya Torah, but if you do hear a Kaddish, or you do hear a Kedusha, so you have to stop and be mechaven to what they're saying. Listen, but don't answer. Don't answer. And after they finish, go back to the Shmon Esrei. But if you're really davening properly, you wouldn't be aware of it all, what they're doing. You wouldn't be aware of it. Okay. Let's go to the next piece now. And the page in front of you, Kuf, Ois Kuf, up higher. Inyan HaYichud. Yichud means adjoining. Adjoining. What does it mean, adjoining? Have a Yichud? Shelo lahafrid haseichel min hadiburim. Always keep your mind on your words. That's very important. There are two different levels. The seichel is a much higher level. The dibur is the lowest level. It's something which is sort of tangible. Seichel is something which is intelligence. Can you feel intelligence? Can you see it? No, it's not. But you have to keep the intelligence, the seichel, connected to the words. Shelo la'arev ra betov. Not to allow evil to mix in with tov. How does that happen? Ra betov, when your seichel is not with the words, you're leaving the words open to attack. And then you may mix in the good with the bad. That means the good are the words, and the bad is now the occupant of the kochos of tumah. Make sure they're protected. Protect the words by keeping your mind on them. Keeping your mind on them. And you know, it says someplace else in the Baal Shem Tov, here it's very interesting to know this also. It's very important. Everything we do, everything we say, this is brought down in the Zohar also. Everything we say, no matter how holy it is, if I don't have the proper preparation beforehand, and I'm saying that I want this to go only to Hashem, then the kochos of Tumah can get some kind of nurturing from it too. In other words, it's sort of open. It's like, you're doing a mitzvah that everybody can see, and even the goyim come along and they'll see it too, and they also want to take part of it. You're making a party out in the street, and then you have the food up on the table, and there's no signs that say it's for Jews only or for your family only. The table with food. So people passing by, everyone grabs a piece, and why not? It seems to be it's open for everybody. So how do you avoid the other people who you don't want to partake in it, but they should leave it alone? How do you do that? You got to put a sign up. Family only. Jews only. It means the goyim, or people who are not part of the family, can't touch this table. Reserved. It's reserved. Says the Baal Shem Tov, before you start davening, or before you're doing a mitzvah, you should say, L'shem yichud kutshu b'rinchu. Hinei muchen mezumah. I want this to go only to Hashem. If I don't do that, then the goyim, the kochos of tumah, can also get nurturance from it. It's open. It's wide open. I'm not protecting it. I'm performing it, I'm creating it, but it's open to the public. Anyone who wants can take part of it. If I focus it to a specific person, to a specific end, by preparing it in my mind or saying, I'm doing this only to Mimukayim the mitzvah, then it's closed. It's locked. Nobody else can touch it. So very important to remember every time we do that. Before davening, before you put on your tzitzis, before you put on your tefillin, it's very important to say that the Shem Yichud or Hineni Muchad Mazumun, to prepare it and direct it for a certain goal so that nobody else can take it away from you. They can't take it away from Hashem. We don't want them to have any kochos. We don't want them to have it. The more kochos they have, the more difficulty we make life for ourselves. We have to try to keep them as weak as possible, not to give them any koach. Another example I'll bring you where it gives them a lot of koach. There is some people, unfortunately, who like to have long nails, fingernails. And there's a thing I've seen a lot of people, they leave the pinky nail longer, and they think this is sort of fashionable, whatever.
That's a Yemenite custom.
It's against Torah. Against the Torah. It's very, very bad. It's very bad. That's because what happens is the following. We are kadosh, we're holy. And the kedusha extends till the end of our fingers. Hashem left after Adam Rishon committed his Aveira, and he ate from the Eitzadas. This nail covering that we have was a protection to the entire body of Adam Rishon and Chava. They were covered by nail. That's what it says. I wasn't there, but that's what it says. So after the Chet, so Hashem took away the nail covering and left it on the fringes of the body. Why on the fringes? Because the kochos of Tumah, they always go to the fringes of the Kedusha. That's where they try to get, like Amalek. Who did Amalek attack? They didn't come to the center of Klal Yisrael. Those who were at the end, outside the Erev Rav, or hanging outside at the very fringes, that's where Amalek attacks is. They came to the end, to the weak ones who were at the very end, who couldn't keep up with everybody else. That's where they strike, that's where they attack. The Tumah also attacks at the fringes of the Kedusha. And if you have your nails, which extend, that gives the Tumah more body in order to which to take from. So we have to keep the nails as short as we can, not to let the Tumah come to it and nurse from it. So it's very, very important to always keep our nail, especially before Shabbos. We should always try to keep your nails cut before Shabbos. They should not extend over the meat of the nail. You could have nails, but they should not extend over the flesh. Once it goes over the flesh, that gives the kochos of Tumah the ability to nurse from it, and they only make you trouble. They only make you trouble.
How do women do it?
Women too.
Really?
Women also. No difference. No difference. This is a goyish custom. The women like to have long nails. They think it's attractive, and they have all kinds of colorings, paint on the nails, this color and that color. It's not a Jewish thing. It's not a Jewish thing. It's a goyish thing.
What about toenails?
Same thing. Same thing. Same things. The nails are supposed to be up until the flesh, not extending over the flesh. Very, very important to remember that. Not to give the kochos of Tumah more ability to get strength. When they have the strength, that gives us problems. They manifest themselves in all kinds of ways. Another thing that people do very often, they mention the name of Rishayim. Mention the name of Rishayim. Remember with that fellow in Iraq, Saddam, I don't even mention his last name. His name used to be plastered over when they had the not the 6-Day War, the missile war. They shot 39 missiles here in Eretz Yisrael many years ago. His name was, people were talking about him all the time. A terrible thing. You mention his name, that gives him koach. Because everything we say, remember, the words that we say, they make those words come alive. It gives them, when you call somebody by his name, you're arousing his neshama. You're energizing his neshama. That's why the Mekubalim say, when you give a person a name, don't give him two names. Give him only one name. Don't call him Chaim Shmirel, call him Chaim. Why? Because you're going to be lazy. You're not going to give him his full attention. You're not going to call him Chaim Shmirel. You'll say Chaim. But he has two names. And his both names give him energy. If you call both names, you give the person energy, the maximum energy he can get by arousing his names. All the letters have Kedusha. And every time you arouse that Kedusha, you give the person energy. So if you give a person two names, you got to get used to calling the person by both names. I have a couple of friends of mine at the yeshiva where I am. They say to me all the time, Naftali Elimelech. And I say to them, I call them by their full name also. I forget myself. I mean, most people call me by my one name, who will call me by my first name, by one name. But really, you should use two names. That's why the Mekubalim are against giving two names to a person. Sometimes you have to because of shalom bias. You're naming after a relative and they'll be insulted if you don't give a name. So sometimes to avoid machlekes, not people shouldn't feel bad, you have to give two names. But when you do give two names, you have to try to get used to using both names. Very important. Because actually the person himself is losing out. When you call him by one name, you're not giving him the full energy that it's coming to him. He has two names. Why those names are his neshama. Both names give him energy, they give him life. So you should call him by, at least once a day, to call him by both names, at least one time a day. Very important. So the idea is, I mentioned it because of the other thing. When you're talking about Rishayim, don't use their name. Do not use the name. Say that Russia, we all know who he is. The guy in World War II, who ran in the head of Germany, who ran in World War II. We say Yamach Shemo, that's all. Yamach Shemo. If you do mention the name, say Yamach Shemo, so curse it. Curse it. But to say the name Stam, it energizes the name, energizes the kochos of Tumah. So it's not a good thing to do, and therefore, you have to remember not to give the kochos of Tumah energy by saying words in davening and not concentrating. Then they fill it up and they get nurturance from the kedusha of the letters, and they cause us trouble later on. Okay, that's it for today, Rabbi Sai.